Hi everyone, thanks for joining the session here. Going to talk today really about how sports is kind of leading the social television and event-based category and what sort of trends we can expect to see in 2015. Sports obviously has a huge influence in the kind of social sphere, and we're kind of seeing more and more social networks start to kind of get into that game. So yeah, just a discussion of what we can expect to see and how some of that functionality may evolve over the coming 12, 18 months. In terms of a little introduction to Telescope, we've been going for around 13, 14 years in the kind of sports and entertainment category, really kind of driving a lot of high profile, very demanding events, both on TV and kind of live events. You can see a few of those examples on your screen here, and some of the clients we've worked with in the sports space. We kind of really specialize in a couple of areas. One is how do we engage an audience and fans from a live event or broadcast. Once we've engaged those fans, how do we stimulate conversation with those fans and kind of get them communicating and talking about that event, submitting their own content. And once we see what content they're submitting, how do we find the best content and bring that content back and visualize that either on a jumbotron in a live event, on TV, or into a digital platform that can kind of be used before, during, and after the event to really maximize the brand impact that event can have. We have a proprietary technology that delivers about 2 billion interactions every year. As I said, it's been tested to kind of very high capacity in real time, which is a crucial piece for this. We have very long-standing and integrated relationships with people like Twitter and Facebook, and really kind of work with them on advancing both our product and to some extent theirs. And we've worked on some of the campaigns you can see, like NBA's All-Star Fan Ballot and All-Star Weekend, NASCAR Sprint Cup experience in the entertainment space, shows like American Idol and The Voice, which have been great in terms of really innovating with social media and showing kind of how some of those mechanics and techniques can be used to drive virality and drive promotion and really drive participation of consumers with those brands. Just in terms of what we kind of have available, we have a library of products that can be used, and we really kind of use to fit and match to the kind of particular need of each client, and that can range from interactive mechanics, voting, polling, sweepstakes, those sorts of things, to things like social visualizations, fan walls, social Q&A with celebrities, kind of a range of things that really are aimed at driving sharing. In terms of 2015, and as you can see the slide here, what can we expect this year, and how can kind of sports maximize the impact it has in social media? And as I mentioned before, I think sport offers real-time marketing opportunities, that aren't available kind of in every sort of category. And as audiences clamour to be kind of closer and closer to their favourite content, we can expect to see some of these trends continuing. So things like the increase of fan engagement in real time, so people's ability to participate, actually there and then, and see some sort of impact for that, within the event, within the broadcast. So networks and leagues will create more and more touch points with their audiences and utilize that content both on air and in stadium. So bringing the home audience also closer to things in a real event. So that might be a home audience member interacting during an event, but actually some of that being visualized on a screen, actually in the event. I think we've also kind of gone through the first phase of user-generated content. Text is obviously an important kind of part of that, but I think we're going to see more and more how richer media like picture and video can be integrated. So live fan reactions that aren't just based on a Twitter comment, but actually will be pieces of video, them reacting to a touchdown or a moment in a game, and actually that being featured into an on-air channel, but also alongside into kind of a digital space. And I think more and more of that interactivity and two-way communication, so much more kind of powerful tool, for the rights holders. And I think social chat isn't not enough on its own. So how do we kind of create some of those play along and participative experiences that really engage fans and keep them engaged? And using those real-time marketing techniques to kind of keep fans engaged and within a sporting event. I think from our perspective, we've seen that flexibility and real-time effect is absolutely crucial to enable social media teams and producers to maximize reactivity to those events as they change. So features like trash talking, predicting, challenging friends. All of those are kind of crucial to how we'll maintain that connection with fans. And lastly, I think one of the things I want to talk about today is that Facebook is really kind of getting in the game. They certainly see that real-time piece in TV especially is an important part. Twitter's clearly established a kind of leadership position there, but I think Facebook and as part of Facebook, Instagram are going to start becoming more and more important to that by embracing real-time and kind of opening up their platform to maximize live fan engagement and sharing. I'm going to talk a little bit about how that might work through a couple of examples that I've got coming up. The first one actually is an event, so it's something we did around the World Cup last year, the soccer, as I like to say, football, as I'm European, and really was nothing, no TV promotion, no radio promotion. It was a campaign that asked fans to poll for who they thought would win the World Cup final, and the colours of that poll winner would be projected onto the Christ Redeemer statue in Rio de Janeiro. So the campaign was called Arms Wide Open. It was a huge success. In just 36 hours, we got around 600 million impressions, and 100,000 people actively responded to the campaign, directly. As well as generating that kind of buzz and kind of trending. I think it really proved that social activations can drive conversations outside of just Twitter and power images that resonate all over the globe. On the top right, you can see Mario Götze, who scored the winning goal in the World Cup, actually responded to the campaign. So it really engaged with high influencers, which obviously helped spread the virality, and really enabled people everywhere to take part in something where they could see a direct impact. And that's obviously crucial. I think, some sort of way that people aren't just kind of chatting, but can actually see their interactivity and participation rewarded. In this case, by actually, changing the colours of kind of projecting onto Christ Redeemer, but it could be something like, a comment featured on a fan wall. It could be something where they're seeing, their vote for an MVP player and who, actually won that kind of vote. So I think it can be a number of different things. That it really shows how social drives huge reach and can impact real life situations, and can draw people into a conversation who maybe wouldn't necessarily be involved in that conversation. And the event-based visualization is crucial to that. So it's not just generating the chat and generating the interactivity. It's kind of that live feel of something, tangible. In this case, kind of lighting up an event. But that equally, you can see how that translates to something in stadium, as well as something on kind of television. So, hugely successful campaign. I think a great example of how these campaigns and how social media can really work with live events. The second example I've got here is something around the NBA All-Star Fan Ballot. It's a campaign we've worked on for the past 6 years, and gradually evolved that kind of the interactive tools as consumer behaviours migrated alongside that. So we started with things like SMS. We evolved into an online tool, Twitter, and recently we launched with Facebook. So it's the first time there's been authenticated hashtag voting via Facebook. So you can do a simple status update using the hashtag NBA Ballot, name of the player, and we automatically kind of capture the vote from the public and private Facebook accounts. It led to kind of really significant trending on Facebook. I think what we see from that is the ability to do things, in a wider array of contexts with sports, using things like hashtags on Facebook, which has obviously a great reach, but also, an interesting data that can be exposed, via kind of Facebook on an anonymous basis. So that could be digging into locations. So actually, you're doing something like a ballot or a poll, but you can actually see the differences between state to state or city to city. And start to use that content in your kind of broadcast or in the kind of digital commentary and editorial that's happening. So I think the kind of first steps with something like this to really start to make Facebook part of that simple hashtag promotion and conversation. I think we're also going to see things like integrated, pulling data from comments, which will drive a huge amount of extra engagement, we believe. And I think a sign of what Facebook's starting to do in this space. And as I said, they have huge reach. They have a lot of information that can be potentially useful, not exposed on obviously a kind of a public basis, anonymously and in private, but can show trends and those sorts of things that start to make a really fascinating picture for how people are interacting and engaging with that content, and obviously continuing to kind of fuel that conversation. And I think one of the things we see is that stories discussions on Facebook can go on a lot longer, like 1 to 2 weeks after in certain kind of cases, whereas Twitter, fantastic actually in the event, drives a load of conversation in the event, not necessarily so much afterwards. So again, I think we see that kind of mix of Facebook, Twitter, as well as kind of things like Instagram and richer media kind of really growing this year, and I think we're going to see a lot more from Facebook. The second, next slide I've got is actually another Facebook example of something I think we see is becoming more and more prevalent. We've already seen a lot of interest in something similar from various kind of broadcasters in the sports space. It's actually an entertainment example on American Idol last season, where we visualized the Facebook profiles of fans who were interacting and voting during the show, and that came up in a fan wall, a kind of cascading waterfall behind the contestants as they performed, as well as kind of integrated into the broadcast stream. So the bottom left, you can see what that looked like in the broadcast stream with a contestant performing, and in the picture with Ryan Seacrest there, you can see what that actually looked like on the stage, and it looked absolutely fantastic. Obviously it's animated, kind of waterfall falling down. People obviously participated because they love the chance to kind of get on air and see their profile picture there. I think there's various things we can also do to advance that in terms of, clipping that piece of video, sending that back to them, via their Facebook profile, and actually then having them share that. We didn't do that last season, but it's definitely something we would see evolving in that direction. It led to a massive spike in fan engagement, and participation. What you can also see on the bottom right is an example of some of the things I talked about, that potentially Facebook can potentially open up, which is we were able to also dig in to data showing who were the most popular contestants with, for instance, male voters and female voters, based on geography. So you could see how people were trending in not just kind of nationally, but actually in different states according to their kind of, how many fans they were kind of attracting in that space. So it really starts to become much more integral potentially to how sports is delivered into broadcast, but also as a live event occasion, and how you could dig into content to really kind of, and interactivity to kind of really make that user base much more engaged, and use that content to really drive editorial. So all this happened in real time. There was no kind of delay. We have a moderation and curation tool that was utilized to obviously approve that, and push that content out. But it was a kind of very swift process between interacting and kind of actually seeing your picture and profile there live on air. This could equally have been a digital application where you were actually going to a second screen, if you like, to participate and see who was interacting, and then dig in and obviously challenge and push that out to your friend networks as well. So, something that I think is going to get richer, and more ingrained, especially in sport. I can see this becoming, video-based reactions, as we talked about earlier a little bit, and those things being integrated into the halftime shows, or kind of the kind of panel pieces around live games, or even into ad breaks as part of a kind of advertising sell, as well as being augmented by a much deeper digital experience where more of that content is featured. And it's very powerful at driving that motivation and engagement. So in terms of kind of the next kind of slide, sorry, one more. The last example I've got here is just something around around what's happening with kind of social sharing, and how events are kind of really fulfilling that. A couple of interesting stats. During the NFL season opener, users shared 8 times more sports content. The conversation's extended beyond the NFL, and the real kind of takeaway for me from that is, optimizing rich shareable content in real-time events drives reach. So, it kind of it's way beyond just the conversation around that specific sports event. Potentially very interesting for sponsors, especially. The second piece is really around personalization. So we did a campaign for Corinthians soccer team in Brazil. We used auto response. One of the things about Twitter that is obviously it's great as a broadcast tool. Currently, there's no way of kind of responding back to those participants, but I think that's something that Twitter are working on as part of their product roadmap, and could be, again, very interesting for things like sponsorships. So the auto response mechanism really created a richer fan experience. Fans who tweeted received a signed picture in return, which you can see there in the top right. I'm not going to attempt to speak Portuguese, but you can see that soccer player there. That was a signed, if you like, autographed digital picture that went back to those contestants, went back to those participants who took part. And that, again, was shared, on a huge scale. So that personalization really drives sharing, creates that two-way conversation. And social media, if used the right way, can be absolutely perfect for that. And the last point I'd make is really something that we saw from a campaign we've run with NASCAR, which is, that rewarding sharing can be a huge motivation. So to maximise kind of fan activity around NASCAR Sprint fan vote, we offered fans additional votes for each social share that they made up to a limit. We saw 40% increase in shares across Twitter and Facebook. So again, create those ways to increase sharing, motivate and incentivize your fans to share. You'll see a huge increase in the virality of that content. So that's just a little kind of take on some of the things that Telescope's currently doing, and I think how we're going to see social media evolve in the next 12 to 18 months, and some of those social networks and how they interact with TV is going to change. As I said, movement towards richer media, more and more, and I think more and more features of that media, pictures and video, back into events, broadcast, and kind of digital. More and more into real time, so how people can drive a real time action and then feature some of that content back. So again, something like a simple hashtag poll halftime of a major sports show, instant kind of polling and results of that on air and in digital, and then drilling down into what they might see around comments or regionality, and using that content to kind of stimulate debate within panels. So they're kind of some of the things that we're seeing currently kind of happening, and how those social nets are going to evolve. I don't know if we've got any questions, but that's kind of it from me.